Hello everyone, I'm the Weather Dude. Welcome back, and today we're going to be talking about Tropical Storm Henri, soon to be Hurricane Henri, that is tracking towards the New England coast. Before I get started, however, be sure you are liked and subscribed, as that does help my channel grow, and to people living on the East Coast, they'll probably need to see this video, so be sure to like and subscribe to get this video out to more people. And we're just going to get started. So here is Henri. 70 mile an hour tropical storm, Henri, call it whatever you want, honestly. I go between the two names. But 70 mile an hour tropical storm now as of the 2 p.m. advisory. And again, I'll be updating as more advisories come out in my community tab, so be sure that you're keeping tune over there as well. So 70 mile an hour tropical storm now as of the 2 p.m. advisory, 994 millibars of pressure. And movement was north-northwest. Right now it's 6 miles an hour. So earlier today, it was west-northwest about 9 to 10. So the fact that it's turning more north and it's slowing down, it does indicate that it's starting to move a little bit more towards the north as opposed west, but it's still moving. There's still west in the name, so it's still moving north-northwest. That'll probably turn into due north by the time we get the 5 o'clock advisory, which again, I'll be posting about in the community tab. So here is the track. Obviously the tracks are posted at 5 and 11. So of course we have this to track from 11 a.m. this morning, and you can see it is definitely shifted considerably towards the west. I mean, like definitely. If you looked at, let's say, like advisory 17, all right, like this was like 11 o'clock. Advisory 15, I mean. This was 11 a.m., right? This was 11 a.m. yesterday, all right? Big change from 11 a.m. yesterday to 11 a.m. today, don't you think? I mean, a landfall wasn't even forecast like 24 hours ago. So this is definitely a big step, going from all the way over here to a possible landfall like over here, like in Connecticut or Rhode Island. So this is definitely a big shift for sure. All right. Now, if we look at the alerts, we have hurricane watches and storm surge watches for Cape Cod, Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, through the coast of Rhode Island, Connecticut, including New London, as well as eastern Long Island. And we have tropical storm watches that have now, the storm surge watch, I think, have been extended a little bit further to the west. But tropical storm watches also for Bridgeport, Connecticut, Westport, Connecticut, Stamford, all right, and of course parts of more western Long Island. And those are your tropical storm watches. Now, landfall is forecast as a 70 mile an hour tropical storm. If you zoom in very closely, though, the low center by then would be over land. So, National Hurricane Center forecasting is 70 or 75 landfall. Again, the only difference between the two, between a 70 mile an hour storm and a 75 mile an hour storm, is the name, because one is classified a TS and one is classified a hurricane. That's the only difference. All right, they're pretty much the same exact thing, but then it does slow down. Right, 8 o'clock p.m. then 8 o'clock a.m. it's still in Massachusetts, and then 8 a.m. on the 24th it's still there. So it might arrive as soon as middle of the day, towards the afternoon on the 22nd. It may not depart till the 24th. So we're going to see rain and wind around for a good period of time. Now, tropical storm force wind probabilities, I mean, they're possible even for the mid-Atlantic states. It's certainly a possibility, right? Like, for example, New Jersey, I don't know if you consider that a mid-Atlantic state, but even New Jersey, in the eastern and northeastern part of Jersey, you do have around a 40+% chance of seeing tropical storm force winds. Even Cape Hatteras, 10 to 20% chance. Like anywhere shaded in any color, you can't really rule it out. But I would say anywhere in those yellow colors and up, I would say is where you have the best bet of seeing tropical storm force winds. So anywhere in that region, all right. But just know that outside of there, you could still see tropical storm force winds, even in the green colors. And this is the earliest reasonable arrival time, the time you should be prepared by. Most likely arrival time. So for the coastlines here, probably around Sunday morning is when we're going to see those winds arrive. And then maybe farther north in northern New England, maybe by later in the day on Sunday. Now, if we look at hurricane force wind probabilities, of course, that pretty much leaves the Jersey Shore, the Delaware Shore, and Virginia and North Carolina out of it. And that's more confined towards Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket. But even there, the chances are only 10 to 20%. So we'll see if this can maintain hurricane status, and we'll get into that. And we're also going to get into all the steering and everything, because this is going to be a very, one of those, a few miles makes quite a difference kind of storm. Now, storm surge, do keep in mind that the Jersey Shore could still see storm surge of 1 to 3 feet. Cape May to Toms River and points north to there All right, so 1 to 3 feet of surge is still possible there. Long Island and the Connecticut coastline, 2 to 4 feet of surge. And then Rhode Island points eastbound, 3 to 5 feet of surge is expected. Now, keep in mind, that is if we do see surge at high tide, which is actually forecast. We're actually going to, this could hit around high tide, which is very bad news. Rainfall could even extend back, right? If this bends back to the west enough, again, I'm going to get into this later. If this does bend enough, we could see a little area of rain and wind develop for the northern mid-Atlantic states. But again, I'm definitely not guaranteeing that. Definitely, the most impacts will definitely be felt as of right now for coastal New England states, where 2 to 4 inches of rain is expected. Hartford, Boston, Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket's in the 1 to 2 range, actually from the National Hurricane Center. But there are spots in there in southeastern Massachusetts that could see 4 to 6 inches. And I think that 4 to 6 is going to be a little bit more widespread as we head further on in time. Now, keep in mind, this was made a little bit earlier this morning. There isn't a updated map yet. Let's look at the flash flooding potential, because again, even for eastern PA, most of New Jersey, even the northern fraction of Delaware, so that includes Philly and Trenton and Wilkes-Barre, you guys do have a marginal flash flood risk. So do keep that in mind. Now that could be from Henri. That could also be from Henri's moisture combined with the upper level low that's in place. So we'll see about that. But Hartford, Boston, Nantucket, eastern half of Long Island, you're in that more slight risk of flash flooding, so a little bit have a higher risk. So key messages: dangerous storm surge inundation, 3 to 5 feet. I would even see some spots it's getting 6 feet, considering that this storm is going to grow in size as it moves up the East Coast. So pretty much from this point forward, you're going to start to see it expand. Sort of like we saw with Sandy, where the size went up. I'm not saying it's going to be as big as Sandy. It could be, but size will go up in terms of storm coverage. Heavy rainfall, flash flooding, urban flooding, and we could see some swells. Well, we are seeing swells pretty much up and down the entire East Coast. So life-threatening surf, rip currents, higher waves as well. If we look at this on the satellite imagery, all right, you can see that the convection might be appearing to move to the northeast a little bit. And that's not because the storm's moving that way. It's because we have a very little bit of westerly shear because of that trough that's digging down through the eastern United States. But shear will be going on the down as we head through the next 12 to 24 hours. If you were to look underneath the convection, take all that out, you can look closely and see those rotating clouds, kind of like underneath there. Now, in my opinion, I think the low is moving in like a northwest to northwest direction right now, even though the convection might be appearing to move northeast. And there's definitely a healthy outflow boundaries too. You could definitely see like a good amount of outflow. So the storm does look pretty healthy. It has strengthened again 5 miles an hour in the past few hours. So we'll anticipate further strengthening as it continues its trek towards the north. All right, you can see it better on the visible satellite. Here you go. Right, the low center is sorry for the bouncing around of satellite, but low center is right in there, even though the convection's off to the south. So as it continues to move north, some models, spoiler alert, but indicating that we could see convection develop on the west side of the system. And again, that would put other parts of the East Coast, maybe even south of New England, in danger. So we'll be watching for every little itty-bitty movement the storm makes. But you can see the low center is definitely kind of like underneath, in between the deeper white and a not so deep white. It's like those higher cloud tops and those slightly lower ones. So it's a little displaced of a center. Of course, that's because of the shear. So again, 60 knots, 70 miles an hour right now, and 994 millibars of pressure. Now, if we look at the sea surface temperature anomalies, yes, they are pretty far above average, but they still will be cooling down as we head north because of latitude purposes. But they are actually above average. So that is one thing that could keep the storm at least, moderate strength as it makes landfall. So around 84-degree waters right now. As it moves north, it could move into some 85-degree territory briefly. Of course, as we head over the Gulf Stream as well, that's where we're going to see a good amount of strengthening. It's last hurrah, right? Our last bit of strengthening, because after that, water temperatures will tumble. Now, even when it gets north, 79 or 80 is not that bad. And considering there's low shear in place, it could still either strengthen ever so slightly or maybe just maintain its strength. But once it heads north from there, mid-70s, maybe even low to mid-70s upon its landfall. Now, farther west would indicate a slightly stronger storm, because if it tracks closer to New York City, Waters there are 75 to 76, but closer to Nantucket and coming from the Gulf of Maine, waters are in the 60s. So farther west would indicate maybe a little bit stronger of a storm. Of course, that's assuming that the waters are deep enough, because if it gets too close to the coast and waters are too shallow, then we will consider that land interaction. A storm can't really develop as much because it can't gather enough oceanic heat below the ocean surface. So again, like I just said before, it coming out of a pretty high shear environment. Shear around the system itself has been decreasing 5 to 10 knots in the past 24 hours. And as it moves north, actually, let me change my color. As it moves north, it will move into this more, less wind shear zone. So yes, definitely seeing the potential for strengthening if that were to be the case. So again, low wind shear, warm waters. I can't say warming waters because I don't think water's going to get warmer as it moves north. I think they're pretty much going to stay the same as they are now, maybe a degree warmer. Now, looking at the model intensity guidance, the 18Z guidance did just come out, actually, for these set of models. And notice some of them do bring it, a northern New Jersey, New York City landfall. All right, I've been seeing that a little bit of a trend today. And even a majority of the models have a Connecticut landfall. Whether it's central or eastern Connecticut, that depends on the model. But most have a Connecticut or eastern Long Island landfall. Remember, even earlier today, but most likely yesterday, we were talking about an easternmost Rhode Island, Nantucket, eastern Massachusetts kind of landfall. So the landfall point has shifted from maybe around here to maybe even over here, that some of the models say. But I would say around Connecticut area, that would be like a likely landfall point at this time. Itty bitty trends to the west. All right. Now, if we look at the GEFS model tracks, again, bringing maybe slightly north-northeast, then maybe north-northwest again. And then notice how some of the models do a little loop before it kind of kicks itself out. So the northern mid-Atlantic states, if it does make a little loop to the south, when it's in that turn, you guys could see a little bit of rain and wind. But don't really expect too many impacts for northern mid-Atlantic states right now. For example, southeastern PA, central South Jersey, Delaware, Maryland. Don't really expect too much yet. I'm not saying you guys can't see any impacts. But rain and wind could still be possible if it does track west enough. But biggest impacts for right now, southern New England and coastal New England. And then it'll eventually whisk itself out. I can't really say out to sea because it's going to be over land, but out over coastal and southeastern Canada. Now, GEPS model tracks, we're getting the 12Z in right now. If you just saw the 0Z, did you ever notice? Remember, that's from 8 p.m. yesterday. How it was like offshore in a way, like the black line was offshore. Well, now look, now we have a bend to the left is what we're now seeing with the GEPS model tracks. So even they has started to shift around, and a lot of model tracks around 48 hours take it out pretty much right around New York City, and even a couple over the Mid-Atlantic states. But even if the low stays over New York City, you guys in the northern Mid-Atlantic, especially Pennsylvania and New Jersey, could even be in play for at least some impacts. And we'll see. Pennsylvania, Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, you guys got to watch you too. But again, coastal New England is where the landfall is expected as of right now. Intensity guidance. So again, sitting at a high-end tropical storm, a majority, like 95% of the models have it a Category 1 hurricane, winds of about 80-ish miles per hour, maybe around 80 or 85. A couple make it a Category 2. One or two models don't make it a hurricane at all. But upon landfall, strength will deteriorate quickly. But, I mean, even maybe around 60 hours out, we could still see a tropical storm before it weakens into a depression. All right, exciting time. It's model time. All right, time to see what the models are. So here's a 12Z run of the GFS. Again, a pretty strong system, 972 millibars. And again, for you guys in the Mid-Atlantic, at the very least, Henri could throw in some moisture, so you could still see some rain. But some models do say different things, so we'll take a look at that in a minute. So they're calling for an eastern Long Island landfall and then maybe another landfall in eastern Connecticut. Again, a different change of pace from where they were earlier, where the low was like at Nantucket or even actually a little bit offshore of Nantucket. So low placement definitely has changed, moved to the west, back where it was actually before. But then they just take it, farther north through New York, northern New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and then out into Canada, kind of stops a little bit and then gets whisked through Maine. So that's pretty much your GFS model. All right, let's get into the rainfall totals, right? You can see where we have the 2 to 4 inches of rain, or even like 2 to 5 set up right here, pretty much going through eastern Long Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts, even through southern Vermont and eastern New York, like your 3 to 5-ish sort of range. All right, and again, even blues outside of that, half inch to around an inch is also certainly possible. Now the Canadian, all right, I want to actually show you guys the 0Z run just so you can see where we were earlier. All right, so the 0Z run, this is the old run, keep in mind. Look how the low gets towards like eastern Massachusetts, Nantucket. It does make a left turn through central Connecticut, but then goes out to sea, right? Well, now let's go to the 12Z model run, all right? Now watch how much this has changed because the Canadian model does definitely concern me, all right? So this brings it north. We got some decent convection on the west side, right? All right, so it brings it northbound. Strength will continue to go up. We see the northwest and west side convection. All right, and then look at this, the Jersey Shore, eastern Pennsylvania, even at the Delaware Shore at one point. A lot of heavy, like look at that magenta. On the MSLP, you don't see that too often. Then it continues to move through New York City, then kind of stalls around. Like look at these heavier bouts of rain in northern Delaware right there. All right, so it stalls around eastern Pennsylvania, and then kind of just gets whisked out to sea like that. So again, all dependent on that upper level trough that's going to be digging down, all right? And it's also going to be dependent on that high pressure to the east. If that upper level trough can take control, right, and strengthen, then it could pull it a little bit closer to the U.S. If not, it might stay closer to New England as opposed to not flirting with the Mid-Atlantic states. So looking at the rainfall from the Canadian model, look at this. From northern Delaware to about Toms River, Atlantic City. We're talking about Newcastle County, Delaware, by the way. Pretty much Toms River, all right? Toms River, Atlantic City, Wildwood. We're talking about like 5-6 inches plus. All right, so very impressive rainfall. Not as much, still over an inch of rain for southeast New England. But look at like around southeastern New York City, even still 2 to 4 inches for you guys as well. So Canadian, a big shift from where they were earlier. European model, between 0 and 12Z hasn't changed all that much, honestly. Bringing the storm north, and again, what kind of band develops that maybe we can get some rain in northern mid-Atlantic, but very heavy rain around New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts. And again, it does go west, right? A little bit further west, maybe closer to the capital district, and then it sort of stalls around. Then pressure actually drops again, even though it's a mid-latitude system, so some strengthening, and then it moves out over the northeast. So again, that's where you're like 1 foot rainfall, like 12 inches over central New York, right? And notice Massachusetts 1 to 3, but 1 to 2 inches, not all that much. New York City 4 inches, according to this, and even central Delaware and southern New Jersey even 2 to 4. Now that might not be all Henri or Henry related. That could be just from our upper level low as well. Now, these models, the mesoscale models, I've seen such a trend in these models, and I won't tell you which direction, but it's a little worrisome. So let's look at the RGEM model, shall we? So RGEM definitely, and I'm definitely saying a more worrisome trend if it goes further west, because if it goes further west, more I-95 cities will be in play. Right now, I would say New York and Boston are the 2 big cities that are really in play right now. But if it shifts a little bit further west, we could see Philly, New York, and Boston in play. So that'd be an even higher population of people. All right, so look at these, these rain bands, first of all right? At this point, Henri is down here, and you got these rain bands that are going to be moving south to north, according to the RGEM model, due to Henri's moisture coming from the south, all right? It moves towards the west, and look at the beaches. Delaware and Jersey beaches by early Sunday morning, like around 9 p.m., and then look at these bands that we see, right? These developing bands to the west. All right, and then you got your eye wall on the northern side of the system, right? Then it makes a left-hand turn, again, around, I would presume, an upper level trough, according to this model, looking like this. Brings it towards the northwest, pretty much closing in on New York City. So you got your low center right there, but then look what happens. Heavy rain band develops, makes a left-hand turn even more. So eastern Pennsylvania, the northwestern quarter of New Jersey, even parts of Gloucester Township in New Jersey, Newcastle County, Delaware. Again, those reds on the map, right? Those very heavy rainfall areas. And notice that starts to fill in around what? According to this model run, starts to fill in around the afternoon, right? 3 o'clock or so. It might last all the way through like 5 in the morning. So that'd be very heavy rainfall. The low just sits here and then does get whisked away, but slowly, because the low is still over New York by Monday night. So, rainfall totals, very, very heavy. All right. Again, here is your like 6 to 8 inches over southeast PA, northern Delaware, Gloucester Township, and western New Jersey. Then right around New York City, another probably 6 inches for you guys too. Now, is this the most likely scenario? No, but just know it's a possible scenario. Some options at this point were to be an easternmost track coming up through Rhode Island, Massachusetts. We could see a track that comes in through Long Island, and maybe bends to the west a little bit, or we could see a landfall around New York City or just east, stalling around and getting whisked out to sea. So definitely a lot of model tracks still in play here, and there could still be a shift in the track. Now, last model before we go here, so the FV3 high resolution model, pretty good model as well. Again, there will be showers and thunderstorms through the mid-Atlantic, again, due to our upper level disturbance. But as it continues to move north, right, you can see, all right, Henri moves north, and those rain bands, those rain cells, do look a little bit more intense due to Henri's moisture, right? You see a lot more red coverage on the map, all right? And again, we could even see some banding, all right, on the western side. Again, this is going to grow in size, all right? So definitely going to be a big thing to watch out for is size, like we had with Sandy. Then it makes a left-hand turn through southern New York, and we got southwest rain. If it starts to move west and southwest again, the rainfall will be shifting on the southwest side, not the northeast side. So we'll be watching for a shift in that as well. All right. And then if we look at the precipitation totals with the FV3 model, again, 2 to 6 inches through New York City area, and then even a couple inches through southern New England as well. So like many things to watch with this system, so I'll definitely keep you guys updated. Thank you for watching. I'm the Weather Dude signing off. Till next time, I'll catch you guys in the next video.